Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Blueprint Labs, where we go over really awesome tech topics that we want to take you into a deep dive and show you some really cool tips and tricks. Wow, got a little tight up there. Of everything that our really awesome blueprint builders are seeing in the marketplace right now, and we want to make sure that you are aware of what's going on in Databricks specifically. And today we are going to go over a topic that is Unity Catalog and SQL Analytics. We've already done one of these, and due to popular demand, we decided to do another one because we know that this is a hot topic right now, and everyone is just really excited about this. So I want to introduce you to two of our builders. First, and if you can give us just a quick introduction about yourself, I'll introduce Shannon Lauder.
Hi, I'm Shannon Lauder, 20 plus year Microsoft data professional. Started in Databricks about 5 or so years back. I've really loved learning more about it, and I'm happy to share what I've learned with you.
Awesome. Thanks, Shannon. And next I will introduce Rick Freitas.
Yeah, hi, folks. Rick Freitas, Senior Business Intelligence Engineer. Been with Blueprint for about 2.5 years now and have been in the analytics BI space for just about 20 years now.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And we have a lot of information to cover, so we're going to get right to that. But I did want to let you know, if you have any questions, we want to make this as interactive as possible. So we have the chat open. If anyone has questions, we will be answering them live. So keep an eye out for any key points that you want to ask us questions. But at the same time, if you have questions that you want to dig a little deeper into, you can always email us at info@bpcs.com, and we will get back to you on any of those questions. You can also connect with us on our social media pages where we will be announcing new events that we have, whether it's a demo, a workshop, a webinar. Everything will be on our social media, so be sure to follow us on all of the platforms, probably where you're watching from right now. So thank you all for joining us, and if you have any questions, again, add them to the chat. But I will kick it off to our team now to go into the deep dive.
Awesome. All right, let me go ahead and share my screen. Awesome, there we go. All right, so today we're going to walk through Unity Catalog and how to use that with some SQL Analytics. Not only has this been requested quite a few times, but things have changed since our last session, so you're going to get a little bit more goodness this time around. So let me start by, I'm going to dive into what is Unity Catalog. And yes, this is the official Databricks documentation. It actually does a really good job of letting you know what Unity Catalog is all about. So if you've been using Databricks or really any Spark system for a while, you're pretty familiar with the Hive Metastore. Well, the Unity Catalog builds on that, and it enables you to have 3 levels of namespace now, not just 2 that you had before. So not only does it let you organize your data, but you can also grant access. You can actually implement compliance models around who does and doesn't have access to, say, PCI or HIPAA data. It also adds auditing and lineage, so you can see data as it moves through your system. You can see what notebooks or what tables access which other objects, tables, etc. It also enables you to search out new data. Maybe you don't know the name of that table or column you're looking for, but you know some of the keywords that might be used in its description, or maybe you know some keywords that might be used in a notebook that use that data. All of that's exposed through Unity Catalog. So real quick, how is Unity Catalog organized? Well, at the very top level, you've got at least one metastore, and your metastore covers an entire region. So in those users who are using Microsoft Azure, if you've got Databricks workspaces in, say, East and West 1, you would actually have 2 metastores. But if you're only using Databricks in a single region, you'll have a single metastore. Under that metastore, you'll have a catalog, or maybe several catalogs to find. In SQL terms, I would refer to this as your database. So you can think of it as a database because it's a collection of schemas. And your schemas are collections of tables, views, volumes, functions, etc. There's some other objects that you can define in your Metastore. You can define storage credentials. So if you've got external locations that should be shared across your team, or maybe shared between some teams and not others, you can actually set up your storage credential there, define an external location to use that credential, and then that location is then exposed to all your team members. You can also control who has access by this definition of external location. There's more we'll go into later, but that's your basics. So if you'd like, you can hit this article. We'll put up a link later where you can go through and dig through. One of the key items that I want to point you at, jump down here to the bottom, look at Unity Catalog limitations. Unity Catalog is very new and it continues to be developed, which means we get great updates about every other week. But there are some issues that you may run into. There are some limitations on where you can use R and Scala that you'll want to be aware of. You'll also notice some implications when you're using Delta Live tables. You'll also notice some implications around grants and just some settings that you need to be aware of. So dig through here, get a good idea of what kind of issues you may run into. And as always, if you have questions, just reach out to us and we'll be more than happy to help. Let's jump back into the slides here. So like I mentioned, what is Unity Catalog? It builds on that Hive Metastore. You can define an object once, access it everywhere in your region. You can also allow people outside of your organization to use data if you want to expose data to external users. In addition to the usual metadata that you would have around your tables, column names, schema names, data types, links, etc. A new feature that they've introduced about a month ago, about 2 months ago now, is this concept of tagging. This is simply additional metadata. A common use for tags, you can tag, say, a whole table and say that this table contains PCI data. Or you can tag a column and say, well, this column is HIPAA data. It's a great new feature. It opens up tons of possibilities for finding and controlling your data, but there is very little built-in management tools for it right now. Actually, I can share with you in this demo, I can show you a way that you can stand up your own management tables. That way you can control what tags and what tag values are going to be allowed in your environment. So actually, let's go ahead and jump into that real quick. So first, I'm going to pull up my catalog. So this is my East US Metastore. And here is the catalogs, or all the catalogs that I have defined. This is our lab environment, so there are a ton in here. And we're pretty much following a project-based catalog naming convention here. But you'll notice if I click on, say, AG Test, this is one of our consultants, Annika. This is her catalog. You'll notice here, you can add a tag at the catalog level. If you hit the down arrow, these are all the tags that have been defined in the system. But notice that your values are free-form text. So I could type in anything I want here. I could even enter my classification is Scooby-Doo, add and save. And nothing prevented me from doing that. These tags, yeah, you can put them at catalog, you can put them at the schema level, you can put them at the table level, you could also put them at the column level. So how do we manage all that? Well, let's go back here. And in this demo, I've set up a simple little schema called tagging demo control. Inside that schema, I've created a table called tags. And this is going to be a list of all the tags that are going to be acceptable for use in my system. And then another table I'm going to call tag values. And this will be a list of all the values users will be allowed to use in the system. And then I enter a little data like, I know I want a classification tag, I want a PI tag, yada, yada, yada. And then I come down here and I add some values. So for classification, I want to be able to tag them as restricted or confidential or internal use. Definitely don't want people to be able to tag things as Scooby-Doo. So once we have all of that data, we can then turn around and we can use metadata to reach into our system catalog information schema. We can see what tags are used by catalogs. We can see what tags are used. Sorry about that. Yep. Oops, I thought I had that running. I can query what tags are in use for schemas, tables, and columns. And when this comes back, it gives us a list of what's in use. Well, if we take this query and bump it up against tags or tag values, we can see places where tags are being used that shouldn't be, or tag values that are in use that shouldn't be. And we can control that. We can either throw warnings, we could make reports, or we could even take automatic actions to control what tags are in use in our system. So if you'd like to see these scripts in more detail, other than the very fast walkthrough I just went through, let us know. We can share these notebooks with you. Let's go back. There we go. So that's how we could control some of those tags. Also, as I mentioned before, Unity Catalog is under rapid development. So there's some features that are coming soon that I'd like to make you aware of. The first of these is attribute-based access control. So this would allow you to enable security on top of tags or on top of metadata, rather than just saying someone does or doesn't have access to a given table. You can now do things like, I want certain columns to be encrypted for these users, and I want it to be plain text for these other users. And you can build these rules on top of, basically any metadata you have in your Unity catalog, and that's coming soon. I am a developer by nature, so to me it's really important that the API keeps up to date, and anything that I can do through the user interface, I want to be able to do that programmatically. So they are working hard to make that happen. They're also working to integrate Unity Catalog with DLT pipelines. There are some limitations now. You can't use user-defined functions in a DLT pipeline if you're targeting a table in Unity Catalog. It's currently in preview, but it isn't public yet. It's not generally available yet. But I would encourage you to keep an eye on the Databricks documentation. I mean, these features come out very quickly, so you've got to check often to see the new features as they come out. So I'm actually going to cover these next two topics here in one. I'm going to give you the Metastore tour. We've already got a light tour. Let's dive in a little bit. And then I'm going to show you some pipelines that I've built on top. So let's go over here, go back to our catalog, and let's jump down to the catalog I set up for this demo. So SQL Unity Catalog, I actually started it in August. I thought I might make a new one for this demo, but I just reused. So you can see I've got my catalog here. I've got a raw, bronze, silver, and gold schema. This is to mirror your medallion architecture. If we jump into raw, you'll notice don't have any tables defined, but I do have this volume. So volumes are mostly for non-tabular data. So not for your delta tables, your parquets. You can argue it either way. Is CSV tabular or is it semi-structured? We're not going to have that discussion here, but the way I'm using this volume right here is this references where I'm landing my raw files so that I can then turn around and create bronze tables, bronze delta tables on top, and then silver and gold on top of that. So the cool thing is, instead of having to use an ABFS ABFSS or a WASBS string like URL, I now can use just /volumes /catalog name /schema /volume name, and I can read files just as before, just with a lot less maintenance, which is very cool. Added benefit, you can browse any of your files without giving the end user access to the storage account. So you can control what they can see right here. Makes it pretty nice. So I've got some airport data, got some flight data. This is a little more interesting. All right, so then on top of that, I have defined a couple tables. So I went ahead, I've got a script that basically reads the airline's file and it turns it into, notice the icon here. So I read that CSV and I turned it into a Delta table, 2 columns, code and description. They're both strings. I even tagged one of them as this is not PII. You can browse the first 1,000 rows or so. So you can see the codes and descriptions here. So Air America, yeah. You can also see where that data is located. This one I put in the Metastore storage. You can see my checkpoints, my versions, all that information here. I can also see who has permission, different levels of permission to these objects right here. Thing to keep in mind with Unity Catalog, by default, it is assumed that the user does not have access. So when you create an object, only the creator and Metastore admin will have access to that object and no one else. You have to explicitly grant your permissions. So keep that in mind. I already showed you where the history shows up, the version numbers show up, but you can see it again here. You can see it's created. This version was just a create table as select. Haven't run any updates to it. Lineage, you can see a tabular form of the lineage, like what tables reference this Bronze Airlines, what notebooks, what workflows reference it, DLT pipelines, if you have any, dashboards and queries that reference it. But you can also get a graphical representation. So you can see I'm reading raw source volume into my bronze table, which reads into my silver table. There's still a bug where if you do most of your steps in Python and you only do one step in SQL, so my gold layer is actually a SQL transform, the lineage breaks currently. It's a known bug and Databricks is working on it. So it's in progress. So you can also see, well, I haven't queried that table in the last few days. So let's go over here, airline, insights. You can see Rick's queried this once. You can see what the actual query was he ran. You can see what he joined it to. So this fills out as users begin using your objects. All of this gets filled in. So this is very nice. All right, now for our pipelines. So let's show you a notebook. So this is the notebook that I highlighted there when I showed you what was reading from bronze into silver. So it's a simple little notebook that sets up my airlines, airports, silver airports, and silver flights table. Since I am going to silver, I decided to do a couple really simple transformations, nothing fancy. Case statement, you know, just some minor stuff. And then I wrapped that in this job right here, run silver. You can see it's just the one task, run that notebook, the history. And like I mentioned before, both, there we go, lines. Both the notebook, create silver tables, and our workflow, run silver, both show up here. I also have a gold job. I did this one as a, like I said, the SQL Delta Live table pipeline. It's just going to be create a refresh. I want to make dim airline, dim airport, and fact flights. This time I am getting a little fancier. Got some group bys and some sums. And then I'm going to call this workflows Delta Live. I'm going to call this from my run gold pipeline. See that it's got 3 different tasks. We can also see I ran it right before we started the session. And if we jump to gold, airline, lineage, there we go. There's my pipeline. Notice it didn't pull in the notebook, but if we hit lineage, it appears that there's no downstream or upstream dependencies on gold because I wrote it in SQL and everything else in Python. So that's that same bug. All right. Oh, one last thing, or 2 last things before I hand it over to Rick. One, data discovery. So let's go back to our catalog. You'll notice I've got a filter right here, so I could filter it down to, let's say, a given catalog. But that's just a filter. If you don't know anything, let's say I'm just looking for PII data. So I'm going to show all results for PII. This actually checks the table names, column names, tags, and description on a table. And it shows you anytime I've got PII in one of those fields. And you can click here, and it'll pull it right up. And so PII. Actually, don't see where PII is listed. Maybe this one came through the notebook. So let's go back and do PII. Notebooks, generate PII. And you can see that's where it appears in my notebooks. PII. You can also see jobs, which there aren't any that reference PII. There's no queries, but it'll search down through files, repos, libraries, all the way down. So this is key to discovery. If you know anything about what you're looking for, you can come here, kick off your search, and work through your results. And then for my very last topic, you've got one last catalog I want to show you. So this system catalog here, it is provided to you by Databricks. It's got some very useful schemas. Number 1, information schema. If you want to query what exists in your catalog, just like you could in SQL Server, you can query this for catalogs. You can query it for your tables. You can query it for schemas. Here, let's go. Shares, tables, views. You've got columns that you can query, just like you could in SQL Server. You can query your information schema to discover metadata that you're currently using. But let's close out some more of this. Sorry about that. You've got the access schema. This is your audit log. This is your Databricks audit log. Everything that happens in your workspace is recorded. And now you can actually query that through Unity Catalog to see who's accessing what queries are most common. You can actually get insight into how your team is actually using Databricks. You can also access billing information. Warning, this billing information is incomplete. This will only be your DBU utilization. So this will be the Databricks part of your spend, not the Azure or AWS part of your spend. The lineage that I was showing off before actually lives in these two tables. So you can actually query your lineage if you wanted to. It's here. You can also look at your storage optimization. This is internal operations, so probably not a lot of use there. But all of this information is accessible through Unity Catalog. And we didn't have this in the Hive Meta Store. And that's everything for my portion. Does anyone have any questions before we move on to Rick?
I don't see any questions that have come in, but quick reminder to everyone watching, feel free to just add them into the comments and we'll be sure to ask them live.
Awesome. All right, Rick, I think you're out.
Great. Thanks, Shannon. Great overview and summary of what Unity Catalog will do. Folks, let's switch gears a little bit here. I'd like to talk about the analytics tools or features that are available in Databricks. And so this includes the SQL editor, along with the new AI assistant, which we'll just quickly cover on. And then the process of creating visualizations and a dashboarding experience. So in fact, because there's such amazing velocity in the Databricks product that we're always seeing new things, there's currently 2 visualization and dashboarding features in Databricks right now. There's the legacy SQL experience, and then there's this new Lakeview dashboard experience that we're going to talk about. And what I'd like to do is kind of walk through both and kind of compare and contrast the different features here. Now, note, based on the documentation that that Databricks has given us, is the new Lakeview dashboards will eventually replace kind of this SQL experience of visualizations and dashboards that you have today. Now, if you've got Databricks installed, you'll be able to go through and actually use this new experience as well, if it's available in your area, which it should be, I think, in most regions. So let's start with the SQL editor, right? And so again, we're going to kind of just cover off on some of these different analytics features that are available here in Databricks. So the SQL editor is the place where you go in and write SQL queries, as the name implies. If you're new to Databricks, you'll know that it might have been a little bit of a lift to use notebooks, a little different experience, but SQL editor here is an absolutely new experience, or a traditional experience that you would have, very similar to just about every other SQL editor that you would use. You've got here on your left your schema browser. As Shannon had gone through, you can see that in this specific catalog that we have, we've got our medallion architecture. So we've got everything from raw to gold. If I go into gold, I can see the views that have been set up in here. Over on the right, you have your area where you would write your SQL queries here. So not unlike SQL Server Management Studio. And then obviously an area for your results. And so a couple of things that I'd like to call out that I think are pretty neat features. Let's just take a look at this fact flights. If I had a query going and I just wanted to insert the table name, I could utilize that. I can use these 3 ellipses to do it several different things here. What I'm going to do here is preview in a new tab. And so we're going to open a new tab that's got this information in it that basically just drops in a query. I've got basically all of the information that's available in this flight data set. A couple of other nice tools that are available in the SQL editor is the ability to format a query. So if this was a really long query, if I went and formatted it, I get a different structure, which is really nice if you're having to go through and test or rewrite the query in some shape or form. See keyboard shortcuts. This is nice. You get a list of different shortcuts that are available for you, so you can utilize that for quicker development. We've got our SQL warehouse that's running up here. Any query that I create, I can save and then share as well. And so this is the SQL editor experience. Now, in the original version of creating visualizations in a dashboard, you've got the ability to create a visualization off of this results tab. So before we do that, I do want to, let's just talk a little bit about the Databricks Assistant. So this is really your ChatGPT equivalent. It's a fairly useful tool, not only for actually writing SQL queries, but for diagnosing errors and fixing things. And I've had a pretty good experience on that. So one of the things I want to do to kind of just show you what it will do is let's go ahead and utilize a query that I have available. And let's see here. Let me just grab this. So in here. So this is my prompt. You can see I'm being very specific on the column that I want and what I want it to do and where I'm getting it from, right? So from my specific catalog and schema and the name of the view. And my experience has been, I think this is still a work in progress here. I've tried it without saying, hey, flights column, your column had some limited success in that. It really depends. So I'm being very specific, but if you've used any AI tools, you know that your prompt is the key. So let's go ahead and run this. Again, I just wanted to show you what this will do. In fact, we did back in, I think it was August, a really deep dive into utilizing this tool. So you could go to LinkedIn and look at some of the prior recordings that we've done on this. So one of the nice things it does is I can take a look at the SQL query that it did, and then I can actually just replace current code. So I can drop that into this area, run that. And let's give it a second here to pull back results. And as we'll see, really all I've got is I've got a year column and total flights column. So as I said before, in the original kind of experience around visualizations and dashboards, what you would traditionally do, and you can still do today, is you would go in here, hit that plus button, and click visualization. So let's go ahead and do that. It pulls up this screen. By default, that's giving me a scatter. I don't want to scatter. Let's try a bar. So it kind of got correct the x-axis and the y-axis, but for x-axis, let's go ahead and change this to categorical so I can see every year showing up along the x-axis. And then let's maybe just turn on data labels, see how that looks. Okay, let's go ahead and save this. And so this is just a visualization that is now attached to the SQL query. And one of the things that I want you to understand in the original version of creating visualizations and dashboards is that the only way to do that was through a SQL query. That's the only way. You couldn't go and pull data directly from a table other than using a SQL query, right? And then the process would have been from here, you could go into the dashboard view and add this as one of, you'd look through a list of SQL queries you had, or you could do add to dashboard from here, which I'll go ahead and do here. And I'll just create a new one called flight test and save that. And I'm going to get a little, and save and add, and then I'm going to get a little item down here. Lets me go directly to the dashboard. And so this is what I'm calling the legacy SQL dashboard environment, right? So this is what it looks like. The edit mechanism here is basically allows you then to add additional visualizations based on SQL queries. That's the point that I want you to get here. Based on SQL queries that you've already created, you could search on these. These are just the most recent that I have. But that is a different experience than what we've got with the new Lakeview dashboard. So if there's no questions at this point on this, I'm going to switch over to the Lakeview dashboards view and show you this, because this visualization and dashboarding feature really extends what Databricks has been doing originally and adds a really new cool feature and experience here that we didn't traditionally have. So let's take a look here. I'm going to create a Lakeview dashboard, and this is going to bring me to a new interface that is completely different than what we had with the SQL dashboard interface, right? And so here I've got basically two tabs. I've got my canvas, and this is just showing me, since I just pulled this up, a few things. I've got this widget down here that allows me to do some things. And then I've got my data tab up here. So what's interesting is that what's new for Lakeview is that you can now, you couldn't do this before, you could only use a SQL query. You can now select a table from your Unity catalog or view and utilize that as, in essence, a data set that's embedded with this dashboard, right? So let me go ahead and search for that flights data again that we just did. Here we go. Here's the gold fact flights that I want. Let's go ahead and pull that in. And so now I have a data set that's available for my visualizations and dashboarding. And so let's let this run, and we'll see here that I've got all the same information that we showed from the SQL query that the AI assistant built for us, right? Obviously, that was trimmed down, but we do have a year in here, and we should have a flights column over on the right here, and we do. So now let's go back over to the canvas. And this is where you start if you want to build both a visualization and a dashboard. See, they've kind of integrated those two things together in one UI. So let's go ahead and let's hit create a visualization. And so what that does is create this blue box that I can drag anywhere. And so I'm going to bring it to the top here. And then I get this container that then I can resize, move it, make it smaller, make it larger. Let's go ahead and just kind of maybe make it this size just for what I think I'm going to build out here. And let's go ahead and build out a visual here. So this new panel is something you wouldn't have seen before because we're in this new Lakeview environment or feature. So I have my data set at the top, which is fact flights. I think I do want to create a bar chart similar to what we just did in the old environment or the old feature. And let's go ahead and choose year for my x-axis. And interestingly enough, so I've pulled in this field. I can click on this field, which gives me an additional window here. It actually wants to sum this, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. So easily I can change it over to categorical, which I've just done here. And so now I see on my x-axis my data set from 1996 to 2022. I don't want any kind of aggregation or transform on that data, so it's already defaulted to none. And then on my x-axis, let's go ahead and put flights. And in this case, it is summing flights. Now, what I want you to understand, and this is something that I found pretty neat and interesting, and a lot of the additional or other BI tools that I've used in the past, to get to this point, I've had to write or create some kind of calculation or measure to do that. It's really doing this behind the scenes based on the data that's exposed from Unity Catalog in a table or view. And so the ability that it can actually do some different aggregations on the numerical value data that I've provided or that I've pulled in here is a pretty cool feature to me. I mean, that takes dashboarding and creating visualizations really to another level. Pretty useful. And then another thing that I want to do here, right, there's only a couple more options here. If I do a group by flights, then I get a nice little legend here, and you see that I get some color variation in the actual bars here as well. And maybe we'll make this a little bit bigger so it looks good. And then obviously I could turn on labels here if I wanted to, and get a better sense of each one here. I might just turn that off since you've got a good hover mechanism here. But in essence, I've just in a very short period of time utilizing a table or a view that is from the Unity catalog, been able to create a very rich visualization here within an actual dashboard, right? And so what I'm going to do now, I'm not going to utilize this one. Let's go ahead and delete this. We're going to go back to data, and I still have my fax flight, so I could reutilize that data if I wanted to. But I'm also going to now create a data set based on a SQL query, which again is only what you could do in the past with the SQL dashboards piece. Now you have the ability to do both, right? You have the ability to select something from your Unity catalog and build, have it on the fly, build out a measure or calculation for you based on the fields that you pull in, and then a visualization and dashboard from that. So what I'm going to do here is let me go ahead and grab some different data that we've got, just some sample data that is available in Databricks. In fact, if you go look up the Databricks documentation around the Lakeview dashboards, you're going to find this same example. So I'm doing this so that you can, if you wanted to go back and follow along and understand some of this, you have kind of a map to do that from the documentation that's available out there. Pretty not a terribly difficult SQL statement here, right? I'm pulling in a couple different fields, doing a case statement to get my weekday name instead of a number, doing a little CTE to get that, and then just a where clause to make sure that I don't have trip distance or fair amount that's 0, and a trip distance less than 10 and a fair amount less than 50. So let's go ahead and run this. Great. And then we can see here that we've got our data down here. And this is New York taxi data. So it's, again, just I want to be clear about this. This is going to treat this as an additional data set that can be used. So let's go ahead, and that is in essence embedded with this specific dashboard that we're creating. So let me go ahead and give this a name. And then let's come back over to the canvas, which is where we do all our magic in creating a dashboard. So let's go ahead and create some visualizations here. We're just going to do a few. So again, I'm going to click this visualization button. It gives me this blue box. If I move it to where I want and click, It gives me this container. Now I can move it around certainly, but if I've got nothing else here, it's just gonna automatically come to the top. Also notice you've got a grid system here, right? So it's going to try to bring things into a grid, which makes it easy. So in this case, we're going to build out just another bar chart, and we're going to utilize. Let's make sure. So because of the fact that I pulled in now basically 2 data sets that are available for this dashboard, I need to make sure I'm utilizing the right one. So now when I go back to New York Taxi, it's going to know that that's the one that I want to use from here on out. And I'm going to just do a bar chart. So let's go ahead and do drop off date time for my x-axis. Again, really neat feature here. So we think about time intelligence. This data is actually at the minute level, but it will do aggregations for you at different time slices that you need, right? So I could go to hourly, or I could go to daily. Now this isn't going to show right until I do my y-axis, but let's go ahead and just do daily here, and then let's drop in the y-axis. Let's go ahead and do fair amount in here. And again, so here I've got the ability to aggregate at different levels, right? Or what it's calling transform here. So I've got the sum option. I could do an average of the fair amount per day, or I could do a sum of it, or any of these others that would make sense. I think I'm going to just leave it at sum here because I think that gives me an indication of just total fares that came in on a particular day. Again, note that I've only got about 2 months worth of data in here. So this is just sample data that should be available in any of your environment, Databricks environment that you get. So you could absolutely replicate this. So great. In just a matter of a minute or two, I've created one visual. One of the other really nice features is the ability to clone that visual. And so I'm going to go ahead and clone that and move it over here. And instead of using drop-off date, I'm going to use the pickup date here. So let's go ahead and pull in pickup date here. Again, it's defaulting to monthly, but let's go ahead and go to daily. And then let's go ahead and change color on this just so we get some variation in the report. All right, cool. So now I've got drop-off and pickup time. And let's do just one more to kind of showcase another nice visual that is available here. So let's drop this in here. I'm going to know that I'm going to want this to be a little bit bigger. So let's do that. We're going to go ahead and so you see now I still have fact, flights, and taxi, but it is defaulted to the taxi data since I've already created 2 items based off of that. Let's go ahead and change this to scatter. I do have the option to put in a title and description. We won't do that here, but let's go ahead and choose scatter. For my x-axis, let's go ahead and pick trip distance. And then for my y-axis, let's go ahead and pick fair amount. And so traditional scatter plot, other than the fact that it's really hard to read because I don't have any distinction among the outliers, anything else that's in here, and the different days. So let's group by day of week to give me some variation here that makes it easier to read. Understand that this outlier is from Monday, or this one up here is from Sunday. And so again, in a very short period of time, just utilizing a few different features here, was able to create 3 nice visuals in a dashboard. So finally, we all know if you're dealing with analytics and or creating any kind of dashboards or reports, not very useful unless you have the ability to slice or dice that data in some shape or form, right? So let's go ahead and utilize the filter feature that is available here. So I'm going to go ahead and click filter and go ahead and drop this up here. It works just like the other visualizations here. I'll go over here and you can see the options for filters. I've got a multi-sect, single select, a date picker, or a date range picker. So if I use date range picker here, I can choose the field that I want. Maybe we want to do pickup date. And now I have a very rich filter mechanism that allows me to choose the start date, even down to the hour and the minute, and an end date down to the hour and minute. So very useful tool here. Let's go ahead and do this just 2 more times. We're going to create another filter here. Let's drag this up. Let's make this a little bit smaller. Might fit that way. Let's do that. Actually, I might be able to fit in here. I've expanded the zoom of this, just hoping that you guys can see things a little bit better, because I've got quite a large monitor that we're showing this on. So we'll play with this just a little bit to get it to work. Let's go ahead and choose. Let's make this just single select. And let's go ahead and do drop off zip code. And I can actually then name this. If I can type correctly, drop off zip. Great, that seemed to work. And let's go ahead again. I can clone this, which is nice, because I still want a single select. I can move these things back around here very, very easily. Get them in the right spot. And for this one, let's go ahead and do pickup zip. And sorry, as you can see, I got into the wrong data set. There we go. Now we're New York Taxi, and let's go ahead and change the name. Great. And so now I've got filter mechanisms for this report, right? So if I come in here and choose a specific zip, I can see that everything on the page has changed relative to that filter. Very easy to set up. Same with this one, or I could do both at the same time and with date, and just filter the data down. So really, I mean, in a matter of, I think, 5 minutes or less, we were able to really create a very rich dashboard and visualizations within a dashboard here, utilizing not only data that's available from your Unity catalog, but data from a SQL query, right? And again, this piece is the new piece, other than also the user experience of kind of combining the visualization and the dashboarding piece together. Outside of that, and select a table here, that's really what the Lakeview dashboards are about here. So if we come back here, I can go ahead and publish this dashboard. And so just using this feature up here, publish. And the only thing to call out here is that there are 2 publish options. So I can publish this where it embeds the credentials that I have. And so I am an admin. So in this case, that means everybody would be able to see this dashboard, or I could choose don't embed credentials. And by doing that, then it's going to use the user's permissions for whatever, for their ability to view this dashboard. So I'm going to go ahead and publish here. I can view it from here, which is actually going to pull up a different window. I could also go back into new dashboards. In here, there is, this is not unlike the old dashboard view. You have the ability to edit up here. And so that takes me back into the edit mode. So I didn't really give this a name. So let's do that. I may have used that name before, not sure. And publish update. We're going to embed credentials again. and then back to the published view. This is what people would go into when they're not actually creating one, but looking at a dashboard and getting a sense of what somebody else has created here. So yeah, so guys, I mean, I really like this new Lake View dashboard concept, the ability of kind of integrating the visualization piece as well as the dashboarding. As we saw before, really those are a little bit separate, and everything in the original experience, what they're calling the SQL dashboard experience, was only based off of a SQL query. In this new Lakeview dashboard, you have the ability now to utilize anything that's coming from your Unity catalog. So actually did that faster than I have in all of the demos that I've done in the last couple of days just to get ready for this. So we've got time open for questions, comments on anything that we've covered here, both on the analytics side as well as the Unity catalog side. Folks, anything?
I don't see anything at the moment, but we are happy to answer questions off screen as well. So feel free to email us at info@bpcs.com. It's just at the bottom of the screen right here, and we will be happy to connect with you on that. You can also connect with us on LinkedIn. We're all on there and happy to make the connections and answer questions for you as well. I'll just wrap things up, and feel free to add a question if you have something, and we'll answer that as well. But just wanted to say a big thank you to, first of all, our two awesome presenters. We have Shannon and Rick, who've taken a lot of time to prepare this presentation for you, and we hope that it's been really beneficial for you. If you feel like this could be a really great workshop for your teammates, make sure to send this over to them. You can just grab the link from your browser, send it over, and we hope that it's been a really, really awesome experience for you. We hope to do a lot more of these in the future. If you have suggestions of topics you'd like covered, that's another way that you can just comment and add that suggestion. You can also email it to us, and we will make sure to take that into consideration as well. But we just want to say a big thank you to everyone who joined us this afternoon, and we hope to see you at our next event. You can always go to bpcs.com/events and check out all of the events that we have coming up. But the easiest way is just go on and follow us on LinkedIn, and that way you'll be notified of any new ones that come up. But thank you all for joining, and thank you, Rick and Shannon. We so appreciate your time. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.